Welcome to the live chat. If you're able to hear me, please let me know in the chat box. Again, welcome to the live chat. If you are able to hear me, please let me know in the chat box. Thank you for confirming that you're able to hear me. We are working on the Unit 4 Perform assignment. Again, we're working on the Unit 4 Perform assignment. This particular assignment this week is rather long, not because it is complicated, but because we have a lot of forms to go through and still have two problems. So, unfortunately, if you get knocked out of the class, if for some reason you get knocked out of Connect, if for whatever reason you fall behind and you're unable to catch up, please just simply go back and watch the recording, because I don't want to lose valuable time that we need to work on these problems and get everybody else out of here within a reasonable time. If if there's someone who is working along with me, please let me know that in the chat. If you are not and you're simply following along, that's fine as well. But we will literally get started within 1 minute. Even those that come into the class late after we've started, we just won't be able to go back today, unfortunately, because the problems are so long. So we will start in another minute. Okay, thank you to those who are working alongside of me. Thank you to those who are simply following along. That is fine. This is being recorded. So as soon as we are done, it'll be available for everyone to watch back, because the problem is so lengthy. Both of the problems are so lengthy today. We will not have time to, wait too long for anyone to catch up, unfortunately, because we have to be able to get through these problems before the class time is over, and we don't want to keep anyone for 2 hours. So I think you should be able to see my screen, and to those who have come in after I made any announcements. We're working on the Unit 4 Perform assignment. These are pretty lengthy, not because they're hard. They're pretty lengthy because we have several forms to go through per problem. So we don't have time, unfortunately, to keep stopping, going back, or waiting too long for anyone to catch up. So it is best recommended that if you are unable to truly keep up as I am doing it, to just watch the recording later and walk through it at your own pace. So that way you don't fall behind, you don't feel overwhelmed, and you don't have to have an incomplete problem. All right. So this problem says Maribel Gomez is a single taxpayer. They live in Crestview, Illinois. Maribel is a supervisor who's W-2. We have all of that information. She also had some stock transactions in 2023. She doesn't itemize, but she has some purchased shares as well as those same shares being sold, all within 2023. It also says she has interest from her savings account with her bank, which was $335. And she also had dividends of 1,832 and qualified dividends of 1365. So we're supposed to do a 1040 as well as a Schedule D, a Schedule B as in bird, and the qualified dividends form as well. It says that she had qualifying health care at all times during the year. So let's start with the preliminary information here, as we always do. First name, MAR, you can just start typing it in and hit the drop down. Last name is Gomez. And the social that they gave us is 412-34-5670. There is no spouse involved here or dependent, so that does make it somewhat easier. The home address that they've given us is 5037 Circle Court. This is Crestview, Illinois. And the presidential campaign, we don't need to check any boxes there. This taxpayer status is going to be single because she has no dependents, so she's definitely not head of household. And the only other question for this preliminary information is whether or not at any time during 2023 did she receive, as a reward or compensation, sale, exchange, or otherwise dispose of digital assets, basically cryptocurrency. We're going to select the box no. Now, those who are working along with me, once you have this preliminary information, let me know, and then we're going to go down to the income section. All right, we're going to move right along to the income. So the very first line we want to complete is line 1A for her W-2 income. And it says that she earned wages of $94,850 for the year. That number is going to also go on 1Z automatically, so you don't have to type it there. She also had interest from her bank, which was $335. It is totally taxable. So in line 2B, you're going to put that $335. What she also had, according to the problem, is on her dividend statement, $1,365 of a qualified dividend, which we're going to go right here in 3A for qualified dividends, and we're going to put 1,365. And she also had a ordinary dividend as well for 1,832, which you're going to place here in box 3B. $1,832. All right. Now, once you have these numbers right here so far, let me know, because we're going to have to go over to the Schedule D for line 7. So let me know once you have lines 2B, 3A, and 3B. All right, so now we're gonna go over to Schedule D. So at the top of your tabs here, we'll start with D1. Let's see if we can do anything there. If we can't, we'll go over to D2, etc. So let's start at Schedule D, page 1. And you have a question right there at the top that basically says, did you dispose of any investment in a qualified opportunity fund? That doesn't apply to this taxpayer, so we're going to leave those boxes unchecked. Part 1 is dealing with short-term capital gains. What this is referring to, just so you know, short-term capital gains, meaning she had these stock transactions and anything that she purchased and then later disposed of within the same year is considered to be short-term, just so you'll have an understanding of that. So it's an asset that was held for 1 year or less. She purchased, it looks like March 12th, 2023, she purchased these shares and then she sold them in October of 2023. So here on line 1A, under column D, as in David, proceeds or sales price. So what it is she sold this for $43,000. Okay. And with this asset, her costs were actually $47,000. So it looks like she sold at a loss. But this is what you should have here. Please confirm. And, you know, in general, while I'm thinking about this, I need to make this announcement. So, and I was going to make it anyway at the end of class. Monday is the open window request for incompletes. So please don't send me an incomplete request before Monday because it won't be processed, because it has to occur after Monday, between Monday and Friday of next week. In saying that, many of you, what I am seeing is that, you know, you're not able to, or you haven't been able to complete the assignments. And I see students every single term hustle and bustle right at the very end and practically kill themselves trying to complete past due assignments. And I also will say this, I have also seen a lot of students make a big emphasis on counting just how many points they need to pass. This is what I'm going to suggest. I never suggest anything like that. If you have this term dealt with any and everything that kept you from your classwork, meaning a hefty work schedule or family emergencies or death or, you know, pregnancies, whatever the case may be, these are things that you request incompletes for. Okay. Simply requesting an incomplete because you didn't get around to doing any of the work is not going to be a good enough reason to grant an incomplete. And I need everybody to understand that. You don't need to worry about what an incomplete is. If you've never requested one, I'm going to send out that information. Okay. However, I want you to pass. I want you to, you know, get the most out of this class. I don't want you to have to take things over. So my strongest suggestion is that if you know that you have suffered from some type of event this term in the past 5 weeks that caused you to fall behind, you might want to consider applying for an incomplete starting Monday. Okay. And I'm just going to put that out there. All right. So going back to this, now we can go down to part 2, which deals with assets that have been held longer than a year, which would be her other stock transactions that she literally purchased the year before, and she's disposing of them in 2023. So it looks like there were 2 sets of stock purchases, one on July 8th for, it looks like she purchased it for 18,000, sold it for 15. And then the purchase she made back in February of 2016 for 22,000 worth of stock shares, and she sold it in 2023 for 30,000. So starting with the sales proceeds for column D, 15,000 plus 30,000 is 45,000. So we're going to place that here in box D, or column D, I'm sorry, line 8A. And her costs for those are 18,000 plus 22,000, which is 40,000. So we're going to put 40,000 in column E, as in Edward. So now you should have this for part 2, confirm that you've got this, and then we'll move forward. All right, so now what we need to do is just ensure that everything looks okay, and it does for this page. Let's go over to Schedule D, page 2 now. Schedule D, page 2. So line 16 says to combine lines 7 and 15, and I can tell you, taking a negative and a positive, we are left with 1,000 positively, okay? And line 17, let's see if this is applicable to the taxpayer. Okay, it says, are line 15 and 16 both gains? We're going to say yes, all right? And if you go down a little further to line 20, it says, are lines 18 and 19 both 0 or blank? Are you not filing form 4952? And we're going to select the yes box here. All right. There's no numbers to enter for the rest of this. Just you need to make sure those 2 boxes are checked and that you have 1,000 in box 16. Confirm that you have all of this, and then we will go to the qualified dividends tab. All right, very good. So if you've gotten everything here, click on the qualified dividend tab now. We're going to see what we can complete here. Let's see, I think they need the 1040 page, line 15. All right, so we have to stop for a second and go back to 1040 page 1. So let's do that. 1040 page 1. Where we left off was line 7, 1040 page 1. We left off on line 7. And line 7 from the Schedule D, the amount you need to place there is that 1,000 positive gain that she got from her stock transactions. All right. And if you have that 1,000, what you should have in box 9 is 98,017. You should have that same number in box 11. Box 12, we can just use the standard deduction because it said that she had no itemized deductions. So for a single taxpayer, that is 13,850 that you're going to place on line 12. And once you have that, line 15 says to subtract line 14 from 11. So 98,017 minus 13,850. is 84,167. So confirm you have this, and now we can go back to qualified dividends tab, but only after you confirm that you have everything for page 1 of this 1040. All right. Thank you all for confirming that. So now we're going to go up to, now we can go to the qualified dividends tab. That's the tab you should start on. And line 1 says enter the amount from 1040. Line 15, I can tell you that amount is 84,167. So that's what you need to place in box 1. Box 2 says enter the amount from form 1040 line 3A. That is dealing with the qualified dividends, which it was 1,365. And line 3, where it says, are you filing a Schedule D? We're going to check this box that says yes. And the amount that came from that Schedule D line 15, well, actually line 16, was 1,000. So far, these are the amounts you should have on your qualified dividends tab. Confirm that you have that before we move down further. Okay, thank you for confirming that. So now we're going to move down to line 6, where it says enter 44,625 if single or married filing separate. That's the amount that we're going to enter, 44,625. Line 7 says to enter the smaller of line 1 or line 6. The smaller is definitely going to be line 6. So we're going to pull down 44,625. Line 8 says to enter the smaller of line 5 or line 7. And it is still line 7. So we're going to enter 44,625 there as well. Line 10 says to enter the smaller of line 1 or 4. It is definitely 4. So we're going to enter 2,365 on line 10. Line 11 says to enter the amount from line 9, which is 0. So you're going to enter a hard 0 there on line 11. And let me know you have all of this so far before we move down to the next part. Thank you. So now we're going to go down to lines 13 through 20. Line 13 says to enter 492,300 if single. So we're going to enter that. Line 14 says to enter the smaller of line 1 or line 13. And so we're going to bring down line 1, 84,167 there. Line 17 says to enter the smaller of line 12 or line 16. It is definitely line 16, so 2,365 there as well. And line 18 says to multiply 17 by 15%, so 2,365 multiplied by 15% is 355. And line 21 says to multiply line 20 by 20%. Anything multiplied by 0 is in fact 0. So we enter a hard 0 on line 21. Please confirm that you have this before we complete this form. All right, very good. The final steps of this form. Line 22 says to figure out the tax on the amount. Line 5, if 5 is less than 100,000, use the tax table to figure the tax. So line 5 is less than 100,000. So we're going to use the table that they have given us here. Let's see. What we have. Not sure why it's taking so very long to open. All right. And actually, this is the wrong table. Let's open up the other one. All right. I think it was frozen for a little minute. This is the table that we need to use here. And we're dealing with a single taxpayer, correct? I believe that's the case. Yes, single taxpayer. And the income that was on, what was it, line 5, I believe, 81,802. Is that what they wanted us to use, was line 5? Yes. So 81,802, more or less, that falls within this particular range. Now we have to do some calculations here. And I want to say that I sent out I could be wrong, but that I sent out a breakdown of this or something similar, maybe. And don't quote me on that because I'm not totally for sure. But at any rate, if I did not, I will after this. Okay. So the way that you typically will do this is, because the amount is 81,802, that falls within this bracket. So the best thing to do is take 81,802 and subtract out 44,000, which is the excess here. Subtract out 44,725. So if I do that, 81,802 minus 44,725 gives us $37,077. Now that is supposed to be multiplied by 22% here. So we're going to multiply that by 22%. That gives us $8,156.94. Now, you also have to take that $8,156.94 and add in this number here, 5,147, and round it to the nearest dollar. That brings us up to $13,304. And I want to say we might be off, give or take, by a couple of dollars. And that could have been my fault. It could have been what I was, multiplying. 81,802. All right. Yes. So we're going to go here to our form, and on line 22, where we're supposed to figure the tax, the amount that you want to put there is what we just figured out, which is 13,309. Okay. And line 24, where it says figure the tax on the amount on line 1. Right. So first we did line 5. And now we have to look at line 1. Line 1 is 84,167. It still falls within the same bracket. 84,167 minus 44,725 times 22%, 8,677 plus 5,147. All right, 13,826. So on line 24, we're going to enter that 13,826. All right. Now 25 says enter the smaller of line 23 or 24. In this case, it would be 23. So 13,664 is what you need to place on line 25. Confirm that you have this before we go back to the 1040 and finish out this problem. All right, thank you for confirming. So now we can finally go to the, really quickly, Schedule B tab. We don't want to forget that. Schedule B. There's nothing to calculate here. You're just for the interest. She received interest from local neighborhood bank. So that's what you need to put in that box. The interest that she received was $335. So you need to put that there. Please confirm you have this. This is Schedule B as in Bark. All right, on that same tab, go down to the bottom for part 2 where it says ordinary dividends. And this drop down, you're going to choose ABC brokerage. And the amount was 1,832. Confirm you have that before we go down further. All right, so now you're going to go down to the bottom of the form to part 3. And it's simple. These questions are asking about foreign accounts and trusts, which the taxpayer does not have. So we're going to check no and no for those 2 questions. Once you have that, let me know. The previous amount, 1,832, is that what you're talking about? All right, so now we can go back to the 1040 page 2. Did I leave that tax table up? That's the wrong one. 1040 page 2, line 16. All right, line 16 says for us to find the tax, and the taxable income for this taxpayer was 84,167. So let's go down to that range and see if we match with what the IRS says. These are the 84,000. So 84,167 is more than 84,000. No, I'm sorry. More than 84,150, less than 84,200. And it looks like it's actually off. It's saying 13,826 according to the IRS tables. It's 13,664. So we're going to go with what the IRS says, 13,664 there for line 16. From there, line 22, subtract line 21 from 18. We're simply going to bring down that 13,664. On line 25A for the federal tax withheld, she had $14,127 withheld. Let me know you have this, and once you have this, we can calculate the refund and do a check my work. All right, so if I go down further, line 34, where we're basically subtracting line 24 from 33, 14,127. Minus line 24, which is 13,664, gives us $463. That's what we want to place on 34 as well as line 35A. All right, confirm you have that. Once you've confirmed that you have this, I am going to do a check my work. You don't necessarily have to, but I am going to. Okay, I'm gonna hit check my work to see if it's anything that I can, should fix or can spot if it does need to be fixed. And it looks like answer is complete. So hopefully you got that. If you did not, after this session, just message me and I'll go and look at it. So let's go to the next problem. It says Derek and Ani Jones are married taxpayers filing jointly, and they have a son named Jackson. They live in Spokane, Washington. Ani works as a director of information systems at Washington Community College District. Derek is a stay-at-home dad. We have their socials, their birth dates. It says that they own and they own their home. They paid $15,000 in mortgage interest during the year and $3,200 in property taxes. They don't have any other deductible expenses. Here is the working spouse's W-2 information. It says in addition that they own a small 4-unit rental in Sultan, Washington, and the rental was purchased and placed in service on July 1st, 2010, and was rented for the entire year. And so we have income related to that rental property. So they want us to prepare a Form 1040, a Schedule 1, a Schedule E, Schedule 8812, and Form 8995. and assume that they don't qualify for any other credits other than child tax credit. Also, the net rental income qualifies for the 20% qualified business income deduction. All right, so we'll start with the preliminary information, as we always do. Typically, when it comes to two spouses, if one is not working, it doesn't really matter which one you list. It doesn't matter if the one you list is the one that works or the one you list is just the other spouse that didn't work. It doesn't matter. But we're going to start with Derek is the first name. Last name is Jones. The social that they have given us for him is 412-34-5670. His spouse, first name is Ani, Ani. Last name is the same, Jones. And the social that we have is 412-34-5671. Their home address is 474 Rustic Drive. And the city that is Spokane, Washington. And be careful here, because I've seen students put, Washington, and then they choose the wrong city. It is Spokane. And as far as the presidential election campaign, you don't need to check any boxes there because they didn't give us additional information saying that that was the case. The taxpayer status is married filing jointly. You want to check the box here for no digital assets sold or exchanged. Because of their age, we don't need to do the age and blindness test, and they can't be used as dependents on another return. We're going to list their dependent. His first name is Jackson. His last name is Jones. And the social they have given us is 412-34-5672. His relationship to them is their son, and it did tell us that he qualifies for a child tax credit. He's not considered an other dependent. Once you have all of this preliminary information, please let me know in the chat, and then we'll move forward from there. All right, so now we're going to move down to the income section. We only have one spouse's income to enter. Wages for line one, $79,003. All right. No taxable interest or dividends here. Line 8, additional income from Schedule 1. So please confirm you have this amount on line 1A, and then we're going to move over to Schedule 1. All right, so now we're gonna move to Schedule 1 because we need some information from there in order to complete the 1040. Now, what's interesting is this is the problem where you will jump between forms because the line that we need to complete here is line 5, the rental income and real estate income or adjustments to income. And in order for us to do that, that means we have to go to Schedule E. So now I'm going to take you to tab E, Schedule E, rather. Now the physical, well, first of all, these questions here, did you make any payments in 2023? That would require you to file a Form 1099. We're going to select no. And the second question we don't need to answer. The physical address of their rental property is 12345 Rainbow Way. Sultan, Washington. Is very important that you choose the correct city there, city and state. And here it tells you to list the property type. And the property type according to here is number 2. It's a multifamily residence. So we're going to put 2 in box A here. And in this second quadrant where it says for each rental real estate property listed above, report the number of fair rental and personal use days. They said that this rental was basically occupied the entire year. So we're going to put 365 days, no personal days. All right. Please confirm you have this before we go down. All right. So now we're going to go down. This is where we're going to put all of that information they gave us about the rental property, starting with the rent that they received, which was $24,000. All right. And it looks like they had mortgage interest, which is line 12 of 3,800. Line 14, they had repairs. All right. So for the repairs, which is line 14, that was 1,300. Line 16, taxes. According to the problem, they pay real estate taxes 2,000. So line 16, we're going to enter 2,000. Line 17, utilities, we're going to enter 1,500. Line 18, for depreciation, they have 7,200 there. And so far, this is what you should have. Just confirm that you have everything here from line 3 to line 21. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is line 23A says the total amounts reported on line 3 for all rental properties, that is 24,000. That's the amount of rent that they received. Line 23C, total amounts reported on line 12 for all properties should be 3,800. Line 23D as in David. Total of all amounts reported on line 18, which is 7,200. And line 23E, all the amounts reported on line 20 for all properties is 15,800. All right. Now line 24 says add the positive amounts shown on line 21. Do not include any losses. That's just basically 8,200. And line 25 we can leave that blank. So confirm you have all of this before we go to I think what we need to do after this is form 8995. I think that's the next one that we need to make sure we complete. And then we'll come back to schedule 1. So as long as you have this so far, then we can go over to. All right. So if you have this, we can now go down to form 8995. That will be the next form to complete. And on 8995, this very first line under column A, where it says trade business or aggregation home name, we want to put real estate, rental real estate here. And we're going to use the taxpayers social. So 412-345-670. in terms of the identification number. The qualified business income that we just determined was 8,200 from Schedule E. All right. Line 2 wants the total qualified business income. Again, that's 8,200. Line 5 says to multiply line 4 by 20%. So 8,200 times 20% gives us 1,640. Please confirm you have this so far. Then we'll move down to the next portion. Okay. So now we're going to move down to line 11 here. And line 11 says taxable income before qualified business income. Now, if you let me see, I need to go back to this form. Okay, now we have to technically stop here and I'll tell you why. Well, we may not have to. No, I don't think we do. Despite what it looks like. Okay. So for this, where it is talking about was it line 14 or line 11? Line 11, sorry. So line 11, and I'm going to give you this amount. Usually we would go through that qualified business income calculation, but we don't have time. We're well over time. So 59,503 is what I want you to put in box 11. I think it was last week that we did the assignment that had qualified business income, and I gave you an example on the front course page based off of the homework. And so it would be that more or less that same calculation in order for us to get, this 59,503. So line 14 says multiply line 13 by 20%. So 59,503 times 20% gives us 11,901. And line 15 says to enter the smaller of line 10 or 14. It's definitely going to be line 10. So 1,640. All right. And confirm you have this. Once you confirm you have this, we can go to back to schedule 1. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the Schedule 1. That's where we left off. And specifically on Schedule 1, line 5, where it was asking for the rental real estate royalties from Schedule E. That amount should be the 8,200 that you put on line 5. And when you put that amount on line 5, it should also be entered automatically down on line 10. And if you have that, let me know. So now we can go back to the 1040. All right. So now we're going to go to page 1 of the 1040. That's where we left off last. And we're going to go down to line 8. All right. Line 8 wants the additional income from Schedule 1. We know that's 8,200. So we're going to enter that on line 8. Then we're going to go down to line 12. Line 12 deals with the standard deduction or itemized. She doesn't, or they don't have anything else to itemize. Well, they don't have anything to itemize. Everything went towards that rental property. So for line 12, we're going to enter the standard deduction for married filing jointly, which is 27,700. Line 13, dealing with that form 8995 that we already completed, the amount to pull from that is 1,640 to place on line 13. And lastly, for this form, we're going to subtract line 14 from 11. So we are going to take 87,203 minus 29,340, which gives us 57,863 to place on line 15. So confirm once you have this, and then we can go over to page 2. All right. If you have this, and now we're going to page 2, line 16, we know we have to find the tax for these taxpayers. I'm going to pull up. Oh, good. I already have it up. So their taxable income is 57,863. So let's go to that range. $57,863. So that falls within this particular section is more than 57,850, less than 57,900. And they're saying the amount is 6,505 for married filing jointly. So that's going to be what we're going to use. So line 16, you want to enter 6,505 there. And line 19 deals with the child tax credit. So once you have this, we're going to go over to schedule 8812. That's the last schedule that we have to do. We've done that a few times before so far in class. But schedule 8812. Line 1 says enter the amount from line 11 from your form 1040. That amount is 87,203. Line 4. Number of qualifying children under the age of 17. They only have one dependent under the age of 17. And if we multiply that by 2,000, it's simply going to be 2,000 to place in line 5. Please confirm you have this so far on your schedule 8812 before we go down any further. All right. So now we're going to move down a little further to line 9, which says to enter 400,000 for married filing jointly. So we're going to enter that 400,000. Line 10 says that subtract line 9 from line 3, and if it is more than 0, I'm sorry, if it's 0 or less, enter 0. So we're going to enter 0 because it's definitely going to be a negative number. Line 12 says, is the amount on line 8 more than the amount on line 11? And in this case, it is. And so we're going to check the box yes. And then it says to subtract line 11 from line 8. So we're simply going to bring down the 2,000. Line 13 says enter the amount from credit limit worksheet A, which we have not done yet, but it's essentially the tax that we found out was 6,505. So you can enter that on line 13. And then lastly, line 14, enter the smaller of line 12 or 13. In this case, it is going to be line 12, 2,000. Now, once you have this, let me know. Then we're going to go to the worksheet, 8812 worksheet A. All right, so now we can go to the schedule 8812 worksheet A. And box 1 says enter the amount from line 18 is simply 6,505, the tax amount. And none of these boxes in the middle apply because we didn't do a schedule 3. So line 3 says to subtract line 2 from line 1. We're simply going to bring down our 6,505 there. And then from there, we're going to go down to line 4, which says if you're not completing credit limit worksheet B, enter 0. We're going to definitely enter 0 here. And line 5, subtract line 4 from line 3. Again, bring down your 6,505. Now confirm you have everything here, and then we're going to finally be able to go back to this 1040 page 2 and complete this problem. The box was checked. I'm assuming you're talking about on the schedule 8812, box 12, line 12. Check the yes box. You're welcome. All right, so finally we can go back to form, 1040 page 2. And line 19, we're going to enter our child tax credit, additional child tax credit of 2,000. Line 22 says to subtract line 21 from 18. And so 6,505 minus 2,000 leaves us with 4,505 to place on line 22. The federal tax withholding for the taxpayer was 7,000. They gave us that information in the problem. So we're going to place that in box 25A. And once you have this, confirm so that we can finish the last 2 boxes for this problem and I can hit check my work. All right. So now we're going to go down to line 34. We're supposed to subtract line 24 from 33. So 7,000 minus 4,505 gives us 2,495 to place in box 34 and 2,495 to place in box 35A. Confirm that you have these 2 boxes, and then I am going to hit check my work. All right, so I'm gonna hit check my work. And let's see if I need to correct anything. And said complete but not entirely. All right, so let me go back and see what I could be missing, because you could be missing the same thing. So before you even bother to um change anything or do check my work for yours, let's figure out where it is on mine, and that way it'll more than likely be the same for yours. Schedule E. Da, 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 da. 12. Ah, so form 8995 here next to the rental real estate, I mistyped 2-4 instead of 3-4. So I think that is the only issue that I had here. So I'm going to hit return to question. And when you all are trying to figure out what's wrong, you can do the same thing. It just has to be, um, hopefully it's something that can be fixed. And you'll see a red X next to it. Sometimes it doesn't show you a red X and you just have to do, some more digging. So that is 412-345-670. Let's hit check my work and see if that corrected it. And it did. Okay. So if you did 2-4 here instead of 3-4, go back and change that before you submit it. So that way, it doesn't mark you incomplete. I'm going to send out a few announcements that talk about the incompletes, etc. And when that period opens up, as I mentioned before, I strongly suggest that if you didn't have anything that kept you from, doing your studies and you're just simply behind, then you need to do whatever you can to make up that pass through work, because having a grade and points is better than having a 0. Okay. And I don't want you to wait until the last minute and try and scramble, because once a final grade is entered, it's entered. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing pass through assignments, it also will probably take anywhere from 48 to 72 hours for the grade to update in the grade book. But thank you to those who were able to change your time around. Unfortunately, we have so many storms going around. The last 2 days have been a pass and go, because we went without power for one day and the next day we went without internet. So I'm glad that we were able to go through this and not get cut off. Those who need to go back and watch the recording, you should be able to do so shortly. Outside of that, if you have any questions, please send me a message, use Ask My Instructor and connect, whatever you have to do. And I'll be more than happy to assist you. You guys have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, a safe weekend, many of you. And yes, Gloria, be safe. I mean, I didn't expect for these storms to go as long as they have, but this is insane now. We're on basically week 3 here of heavy storms and winds and rain. So you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see each other here next week for the very last live chat. Okay. And continue to work hard as you have been doing. And if you have questions, just reach out to me. Thank you, and happy 4th of July as well to you.